Hey there, welcome to episode 126 of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is primarily some new Transformers, and then I think I'm going to throw some Funko Pops in at the end. I try and stick with themes if I can, so if I have enough figures of one brand, like right now I have a whole bunch of Marvel Legends to show you guys, and a whole bunch of Masters of the Universe Origins figures to show you. But because I'm still waiting on a couple figures that are in the mail right now, I don't want to do my Marvel Legends video and then get one lone Marvel Legends figure after the fact. So I'm kind of waiting on some stuff to come in before I tackle those. So I don't have a ton of Transformers, not enough that I would really say warrants their own video, because I only have 3 figures here to show you. But I think besides the Marvel Legends and the Masters of the Universe, the only kind of odds and ends that I have laying around that I have yet to show you are the Transformers and a handful of Funko Pops. So I think I'll just lump those together, and then we'll be all caught up, with the exception of the stuff that's in the mail right now. So for Transformers, I got a couple of these Transformer Selects figures from Takara. That's why these boxes look a little bit different, a little strange with this numbering. So you can get Selects figures here in North America, and they just come in these brown boxes, which is the plain brown boxes inside of this black sleeve here. But yeah, these black boxes, I think these are specifically on the Selects figures from Takara. Now, if you're not familiar, like Hasbro, they release Transformers here in North America, but the toys are released by Takara in Japan. The original Transformer toys were made in Japan by Takara, and Hasbro just imported them over. So nowadays, when Transformers toys comes out, they get released simultaneously by both companies. They're usually pretty similar. The Takara toys are sometimes better quality because they use some metal parts instead of all plastic. Although these particular guys that I have, they seem to be all plastic. So what I have here are 2 more members of the Seacons combiner team. So, combiners are where you get one big Transformer and then 4 little guys that make the limbs, and you snap them together and you get a big giant guy. So the Seacons, this was a combiner that came out a little bit later in the original Transformers line. So most people, when they think combiners, they think of Devastator and the Constructicons, and then maybe Superion made of the Aerial Bots, or Menasor made of the Stunticons. But probably a lot of people, like myself, actually don't necessarily think of the Seacons, because I had kind of stopped collecting Transformers by the time the Seacons came out. I only had one Seacon when I was a kid, so I was never able to form Piranhacon, the big guy that these guys all make up. And but I really like the Seacons. They're all these kind of sea creatures. They're not just fish that turn into robots. They're sea creatures, like sharks with arms and these weird things. And I always really liked that concept. The original figures were pretty blocky and honestly pretty shitty. So I was looking forward to getting new updated versions of them for quite some time. Although I'm not sure why, but they weren't released in the same way that all the other combiners were released in recent years. They were very hard to get. I think they were exclusive maybe to Hasbro's website, and even that I think was a very short period of time. So I was able to get these guys on Big Bad Toy Store. They are from Takara. They're not from Hasbro. So you can see Takara Tomy kind of written there on the box. And I got 2 of them a month or 2 ago, and I showed you a video with 2 of them, and now I've got 2 more. So I've got this guy here. He's another one of these smaller figures that make up the limbs. And then I got this bigger box. So this is the big guy that makes up the torso. So it's cool now that I have 3 of the smaller figures and the big one. The problem is I don't think I'm going to be able to get the last 2 small figures. And it would be nice if I could at least get one of them, because the smaller guys are kind of interchangeable. You can use a guy as either an arm or a leg, and you need 4 of them to make the limbs for Piranhacon. Now, the reason the Seacons have an extra guy is because he actually forms a giant sword for Piranhacon to use. So I could live without the weapon guy. But the fact that the last 2 Seacons aren't available on Big Bad Toy Store, or seemingly anywhere else that I can find, I might never be able to complete this combiner. So sadly, I might just be stuck with the 4 that I have. But anyway, these guys are cool. I'll show you. I know these boxes don't look like much, but I will show you them outside of the box pretty soon. And then the last one, I literally just got this guy maybe an hour ago. I pre-ordered it on Walmart's website because I went to Walmart, maybe a month ago or so, and I found all of the latest wave of Netflix Transformers, which are based on the Netflix series, The War for Cybertron, and they come in these kind of unique white boxes and stuff. So I found all of them but one, and I kept going. I've gone back to the store several times. I haven't been able to find this one. I've checked the website; it wasn't on the website. And then one day it just kind of popped up. It was available on the website. I ordered it, and they said, "Okay, we'll ship it to you to be there in a couple of weeks." I got the email today that it was available to pick up at my local Walmart. So this guy here is the Sparkless Seeker from the Netflix series. So you can see he's in that white box with the Netflix label. And basically what this guy is he's like a couple other figures I showed you, which I'll probably haul out again once I get this guy out of the box just to show you. But in the series, the Autobot heroes, they go to a planet that's run by a Quintesson, and the Quintesson kind of reanimates all these dead Transformers that are laying around, and all these like essentially zombie Transformers are chasing our heroes around. So what they've done is they've taken some Transformer toys that I already have, and they painted them up to look like rusty old zombies. And so this guy doesn't really have a name per se, like it just says Sparkless Seeker. So you can tell by looking at him that he is a jet, like Starscream, and all those jet characters are known as the Seekers. So this is basically just some dead zombified Seeker character. And as an excuse to charge me an extra $20 for this guy, they packaged him with two little Transformers. I don't know if you can see them in there. You can see them a little more clearly on the back of the box. So besides the Sparkless Seeker, I also get Sparkless Singe and Sparkless Caliburst. So those little guys that turn into guns are fine. They usually retail for $10 a piece on their own. I don't usually buy them, so it's kind of a pain in the ass. I'm fine paying $40 for this figure, but then the fact that they throw in two little guys and force me to pay $60 for this thing, it kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Anyway, so here we go, Sparkless Seeker. So those are the Transformers. So we'll take a look at them outside of the box. Then we'll take a look at my Funko Pops, and then hopefully I'll get another package from Big Bad Toy Store this week, and that way, by the time next weekend rolls around, I can shoot a video with either my Legends or my Origins figures. So stay tuned for those. And without any further ado, let's take a look at my toys. So here is the Sparkless Seeker outside of the box. Now, I really like this figure. It's got lots of nice detailing in the sculpt. I like the size of him. And this is actually the 9th time that I've bought this exact figure with a different paint job. And I'm kind of hoping it's the last. I really like this figure, and the Seekers have always kind of been presented as they're an army. Like Starscream is kind of the leader of the Seekers. In the vintage cartoon, the vintage toy line, there was like 6 main Seekers. But as like Transformers mythology has expanded into different comic books and different animated series, they've kind of added a lot more Seekers to the mix. So I kind of like growing my army of Seekers. However, this same mold 9 times, and this guy's, like I said, they're $40 figures. But when they start packaging them with extra little guys and start charging you $60, so that happened with, I think it was him and Hot Link, the purple one. They both came with 2 figures. And then I think it was maybe Red Wing that came with 1 additional figure. So they charged $50 for him. And yeah, so it gets a little expensive to keep buying the same figure over and over and over again. And even though it's a great base figure, I kind of wish they put in a little more effort. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. So let's take a closer look at him. So you can see he's got, lots of nice sculpted detail. Like there's almost no flat panels on this guy. Like Transformers are sometimes, thought of pretty boxy, especially when you think of like the animated look. Like this would just be one big flat block. But here on this toy, it's got like sculpting throughout. So there's lots of really cool details, and I like that a lot. On the back here, now some might argue that this looks like a lot of kibble kind of hanging off the back. I don't think anybody really likes it when a Transformer has the whole vehicle mode just like hanging off of the back of him. But I think it works okay with the Seekers to have the, it's almost like vampire wings or something on the back there. I don't think it looks bad. So yeah, I like the way this guy looks from the back there as well. The only part of this figure I don't necessarily love is I find some of the sculpted detail on the inside of the wings. It doesn't match this detail here. Like, this is like really fine detail. This looks almost like it's the inside of a model kit. It looks kind of unfinished to me. I don't think it matches the same detail as this. It doesn't look as like natural or something. But regardless, I always thought this was a really cool figure. Now the head sculpt here, one cool thing about that, so he's got the red eyes there, but all of these Seekers have like light piping. So if you shine a light through them, at least, you know what? This guy doesn't. This guy made a liar out of me. Because normally this, so you can see here this patch on the back of the head. On the other guys, that was translucent plastic, so you could shine a light through it, and the eyeballs were translucent, and the light would shine through for a really cool effect. This guy, he's got a solid brown piece of plastic on the back of his head, so you don't get that light piping. I think this is the first one of this mold that doesn't do that, so that's kind of interesting. So actually, I was going to bring Starscream out in a little bit, but maybe I'll grab him right now. So here's Starscream, and you can see how it works for him. So that light shines through there, and you get that kind of cool eye effect. So yeah, I'm not sure why they didn't do that, but no matter. But yeah, so here's Starscream for a comparison. So you can see these guys are the exact same. And I don't really have enough room to show you all 8 of the other Seekers I have, but trust me, they're all the same. Now, one minor difference that I did appreciate is, so when we first got Starscream, let's take a look at his face. So he was the first one that came out. And you see his expression on his face. He's just got kind of like a dour look. He's got this just this little slit of a mouth that can almost be, you know, like a frown or a scowl. So that's what he got on his face. Then when we got the second figure, which I believe was Thundercracker. So we get this one here. Now he's the exact same figure, except with his face, you can see he's got a smirk. So his smiles kind of comes up on this one side here. So you can see he's smiling. He looks a little bit more mischievous. And it's a small thing, but if they had made all these Seekers the exact same, but given them different heads, different facial expressions, maybe one of them gritting their teeth or something, I think that would have gone a long way. Unfortunately, out of the 8 and now 9 figures, these guys all have either this head or that head. So they only have the 2 heads. So that's kind of a bummer. Now, one thing I find kind of weird about this guy, so I know I gave a little bit of an introduction to him at the start of the video. So this guy's from the Netflix series, and basically he's supposed to be a zombified Seeker. He was like a dead guy that the Quintesson brought back to life to kind of hunt down the other Transformers. So, you know, just imagine this guy kind of marching along saying brains, brains, you know, this kind of, you know, lifeless Transformer. The whole thing is he's a Sparkless Seeker. That's what it says on the box. A spark is like a Transformer's soul. So this guy doesn't have a soul. He's dead. So I think it's a weird choice that they gave him the smirky face. He's got this kind of funny half smile like Thundercracker. And that just seems lazy to me. Like, I don't know why they wouldn't have given him the more expressionless face, considering he's a zombie. So it's a small little choice, but yeah, I think they made a bad choice on that one there. Next thing I'll mention, I never transform my Transformers. This guy was a robot in the box, and that's how he'll stay. But if you're curious what this guy looks like, you can see on the back of the package that he transforms not into the typical like F-14 or F-15, whatever kind of jet Starscream usually turns into in the cartoons. These versions are based on their Cybertronian modes, so before they ever came to Earth. So they transform into these things they call Tetra Jets, which are these weird little kind of triangular shaped spaceships. So it's a cool alt mode, and yeah, I will never see it on this guy. What else do I want to mention? The little guys, I guess we'll talk about. So he's got this dude here, and he's painted kind of like all kind of army green and with some gray. And then he also came with this dude here, who doesn't match the colors at all. He's kind of 2 shades of gray. They both transform into guns. It's relatively simple transformation. You know, you can flick that around, you fold his legs over. whatever. I'm not going to do it, but it's only like 2 or 3 little flicks, and then you've got a gun that the Seeker guy would be able to hold onto. So these guys are fine. I don't like that they charge an extra $10 for every time they throw one of these guys in the package. And both of these guys I already have in in different color schemes. I think I have a couple of them a couple of times over. So like, for example, here's another one in blue, but it's the exact same sculpt as that guy. And with this guy here, I've got another version of him. Here he is in black and gray and stuff, but you can see it's the same figure, same sculpt. So I've got these guys, like I said, a few times over. So they don't really feel like they add a whole lot of value to me because they're not very exciting toys, seeing as they're so small, and I already have them a couple of times, so whatever. Also for accessories, he's got the same 2 guns that all the Seekers come with. So you can either place them in his hands, like so we can carry them like that, or you can put them, say, on the side of his arm, like so. Maybe I'll put it over here. So you plug that into the side. And I think that's kind of more commonly how the Seekers had their guns displayed. Now the other thing this guy comes with, he comes with 2 of these little green translucent blast effects. So they can plug in on the end of his gun, like so. And he also has this larger purple blast effect. And that should also be able to attach to the end of his gun. So there you go. And they should also be able to when you transform these guys into guns, you can also just attach them to there if you want. So there you go. So I think the last thing I have to talk about with this guy is the paint job. And I like it. Like, it's okay. You can see he's mostly this kind of like army green, and then he's got this brown on the canopy glass, and then there's some brown kind of like airbrushed throughout in various spots. Like, it's not a symmetrical paint job. Brown on this knee, not on this knee. Brown on this foot, not on that foot. And on the back, he's pretty clean. There's no, like, this is supposed to be like rust, I assume. There's no rust on the back. And what I don't like about that is the first one of these zombified figures that they released was this guy here, who's a zombified version of like Barricade. I reviewed this guy a little while ago. But I really liked the rust paint job that they did on this guy. Like, that looks like believable, like weathered metal. And then they've got it, here on his head and here on the torso and on the doors and down here and on the feet. Like, I think it looks really nice. And so this was the first one I got. And there's 3 zombified characters in total. So you're looking at 2 of them here. And the other one here is this zombified version of Ironhide. And this guy's all black, and then he's got some kind of speckled gray. But when I got this guy, after getting this guy, I was like, what's going on? Why does this guy not look all rusty and dead? And like, I find this guy looks closer, but he's still not nearly as nice as this. Not nearly as convincing. And then these little guys that he came with, they're not rusty at all. Look, this guy is just solid green. There's nothing about this guy that says zombie. So I really wish that they had done this paint job on all of these guys. Maybe not the exact same. Maybe you could change up the color a little bit. But it seems like they totally went off track with this. And here they use the same paint colors, but they did not put in the detail and the effort to make it look like real rust. So I think that would have elevated this figure a lot. So I wish it had a better paint job, and I wish it had a different head sculpt. But all that aside, I do love this Seeker mold. I loved it enough to buy it 8 times previously. And yeah, I think this guy is pretty cool, and I was glad that I was finally able to track him down on Walmart's website. So next up, we're going to take a look at the Seacons. Now, I already showed you the outside, like, pretty plain black box that these guys come in. And then I actually shot some footage of the very plain brown cardboard box that the figures are actually packaged inside. And I kind of forgot to shoot some footage of these sleeves that were inside the black box and over top of the brown box. And I kind of figured, you know what, these are cool enough that I wanted to go back and shoot this little insert to show you what the sleeve looks like before I throw them in the garbage. So yeah, you see these are just little empty sleeves, so they went over the brown box that you'll see in a minute. But what I like about these are, the outside black box didn't say the characters' names, so here you're seeing for the first time what the character's name is, and you get this really cool kind of like wireframe design of both the robot and their alt mode. So this guy here, his name on the box is Gulf, which we'll talk about the name again in a minute. But anyway, I think that's a really cool like wireframe design of him. And where I mentioned these guys are sea creatures, you can see this guy. It looks like he's kind of like a, you know, he's a fish, but he's got arms, and he's got legs, and I forget the type of fish he is. I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. It's a coleanth or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, there's the back of the box. You can see all the Japanese writing on there, and that's because these are the Takara versions, not the Hasbro versions. So there's not a whole lot of English on there. So that's Gulf, and the other one here in the larger box is Turtler. Turtler. I don't know how to say that, but so you can see here he turns into a big turtle. And there is the wireframe of his robot mode. So both of them are pretty cool. Anyway, there you go. There's the sleeves. Now let's take a look at the actual figures. So here are the small brown internal boxes that I mentioned. So this is the smaller one. And inside you will see Gulf in his alt fish mode. And here is the larger box for Turtler. I'll never be able to say that properly. But this box is larger because he's the middle piece, the main guy, the leader of the Seacons. And there you can see him in here, and he's not really in either mode right now. Now, I don't normally show you Transformers in their alt modes, but I'm a lot more fond of creatures than I am of vehicles. And since these guys were practically in their alt robot or alt creature modes when I opened the box, I figure I would quickly shoot a little bit of footage of them as their creature mode before I transform them, because they'll stay in the robot mode pretty much forever once I transform them. So this here is Turtlor in his turtle mode. You can see he's got an articulated jaw that I'm struggling with here, but his mouth opens up. He's not a great looking turtle, but he's kind of cool. So here is Gulf in his creature mode. So I'm going to screw up the pronunciation, but he is supposed to be a coelacanth, I think, which is a kind of fish with teeth, like a scary fish. I have a coelacanth Beast Saga figure, which is pretty cool. Anyway, like Turtlor, he also has a working jaw, and yeah, he's pretty cool. I dig this one. So here is Turtlor out of the packaging as a robot. Now, this is actually the last time I'll probably call this guy Turtlor, which I'm happy to do because it's hard for me to pronounce. But these guys all have two names, and I'm sure that's not uncommon for Transformers, but they have their North American names, and then they also have different names over in Japan when Takara releases their versions of the figures. So it just so happens I don't need to pay much attention to the Japanese names because I buy North American figures. But for these guys, where these are the Takara versions, the packaging has their Japanese names. So this guy is Turtlor, the other guy is Golf. But in America, this guy was always called Snaptrap because he is a snapping turtle. So Snaptrap is the name you would have seen on the toy you had as a kid if you had this guy. Snaptrap is the name that they would have used in the comic books published by Marvel back in the day. So yeah, I should call this guy Snaptrap going forward. So let's take a look at him. He's kind of an interesting color scheme, but all of the Seacons kind of had this color scheme, which I like. I prefer my combiners to all have matching colors. There's a couple of them, like the Combaticons that form Bruticus and the Stunticons that form Menasor, where they're all really different colors. You've got like a yellow sports car and a red sports car and a black sports car. So the combiner guy looks a lot more patchwork, whereas these guys, they all have colors that complement one another and they all kind of blend together. So the figure itself, he's a pretty extensive redo of the middle figure Hunger from the Terrorcons that form Monstructor. So I don't have Hunger here to show you the comparison just because I already have my Terracons combined into their combined mode. So I don't have the individual figures lined up, and I don't really feel like taking my combiner apart. But that's where the base figure comes from. But this guy is quite a bit different. You might not even notice if you stood him next to Hunger that these share the same base figure. There's quite a bit of changing that was done here. But I like this figure. He feels a little like he's tall because he's the bigger guy, and he feels a little awkward maybe because of that. And like his weapons, you see his weapons look like gigantic for him. He's got this massive gun and he's got this really big sword. But that's probably also because these weapons are kind of scaled to use for the combiner. So, you know, that gun would make a lot more sense if Piranacon was holding it. But otherwise, yeah, it just looks like this guy's like a major badass with this crazy gun. So I like the face sculpt for this guy. You know, very cool. I don't love, like, he's got the turtle head and the turtle legs kind of lumped onto his chest, and they stick out quite a bit. I don't necessarily love that. The guns on the back, that looks pretty cool. So I like that. His feet, I don't like dainty feet on my Transformers, and this guy, you know, he's got like really small, little flimsy feet. You don't really notice it all the time, but when you get up close and you realize, like, oh, he's got these just little rocker ankles, and he's basically got this flat panel as a foot. So yeah, you don't really notice it, but I wish they were a little bigger and bulkier. I like my Transformers to have big clunky feet. It also gives them a nice strong base to stand up on. So yeah, not a whole lot to say about him. The articulation's good. I actually think I have his legs backwards, because you'll notice if I try and bend his knee, it bends this way. And so when I look at the packaging, or the instructions, I mean, it shows the leg the other way. But when I turn the leg, I just, there's that really big chunky bit at the knee, and I don't like that. I think that looks really weird, him having those big crazy knees sticking forward like that. Plus, I think when I have them the other way, when I have them backwards, it gives them a little bit more color to have that blue. I kind of like that turquoisey blue on the front. It matches, you know, his upper half a little bit better. So I do realize I've got his legs probably backwards here, but I like it better like that. So there you go. That is Snaptrap. Now here is Gulf in his robot mode. Now Gulf, if we apply his American name, this guy's name is actually Skalor. So if you had this guy as a kid, you probably called him Skalor, Skalor, one of those things. Again, I'm not 100% on the pronunciation. But yeah, and this guy is also kind of a retool of the Terracon Blot. So he shares some similarities with Blot. But I actually really love this figure. It's one of those ones that kind of, like, I thought it looked cool. You know, I liked this guy when I was a kid. I like his alt mode that he turns into this crazy fish. I like his color scheme. And I wanted him, you know, when I saw pictures of him online. But once I got him in hand, I was just really impressed. It's hard to really put into words why, but I just think like the scale of him works really well. He's well proportioned. I think the paint looks really good together, like it all flows. He doesn't have any, like, sure, there's this thing on his back, but that kind of adds to his character that you got this big crazy face on the back of him. But I don't find the kibble too clunky and distracting like on Snaptrap there. I do find that turtle head kind of distracting on the front of him. Where this guy here, I think, at least, you know, from the front, he just looks like a really cool robot. I like that head sculpt a lot. You know, he does have these extra feet. He's got his creature feet on the side of his human feet. But I don't mind that because it actually, again, he doesn't have dainty little feet. Like you see, he's got a nice big solid block of a foot. And if anything, these just make it even more solid. He's got a good strong base there. He's not top heavy at all. So you can get him in some good poses. You can see he comes with two guns here. And he also has a sword, which is actually really cool that you can store the sword on the side of him here. So I've just got that plugged in there. But he can hold his sword as well. So it's nice that he has somewhere to store his weapons. Now he did have an additional weapon here. So he came with this piece here, because this is actually his tail in his fish mode. So So you get it like that, and then you flip it around, and it's got all these like double-barreled gun on it. So we can hold that. Now, you could plug that in here somewhere as well. Like I could, let's say, stick this here, but I think it's a little awkward there. I don't love that. It doesn't work as well as the sword storage on this side. But it is nice to have the option that you can store all the pieces with him if you want, because if you're like me, you know, all this stuff ends up in a bin, and it can get kind of hard to find if you want to dig something out. You're like, oh man, I got this huge bucket full of Transformer parts. So it is kind of nice that you can kind of attach that stuff on there. He also comes with this piece here, which is the thing that all combiner pieces come with. So it can either be his hand or you can change it so it's like a foot. So that's how most combiners work, is they come with this piece, and depending on how you moved it around, it would be a foot or so like that. You lift the peg up and whatever. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but it can either be a foot or a leg, or a foot or a hand, sorry. But this guy actually, I should have showed you the accessories with Turtlore. So besides, let me get him out of here for a second. So he comes with the gun, he comes with the sword that I showed you, but he also comes with these extra feet. So these are like really big, menacing monster feet. So unlike other combiners, you don't have to use these flimsy little hand feet on your combiner. He's got these like built-in big giant extra feet. The other thing Snaptrap came with was this thing here. Now this forms his turtle shell. It also forms the chest plate for Piranacon when he's all merged together. But it could also be held like as a shield for him. Like you could snap this onto his arm here. But I find it's actually a little awkward. He's already got enough stuff kind of hanging off of him, so I don't think he really needs that. So yeah, that's about all I have to say for these guys. Although maybe before we go, I will just bring out the other Seacons that I showed you in a previous video. So they are right here. So this guy here, this is Nautilator, or if you want to go with his Japanese name, it's Lob Claw. And this is Seawing, aka Kraken. So there you go. I've got 4 of the 6 Seacons. Now the 2 that I don't think I will be able to get, which is kind of a bummer, is Overbite, which is this kind of shark character that's got legs. And yeah, he would be pretty cool to get, so it's a bummer that I won't get him. And the other one is Tentakill, which turns into a like squid character. And Tentakill is actually the only Seacon I have here from the vintage toy line. So this is the vintage Tentakill, and this is just gives you an idea of what the vintage Seacon figures were like. They kind of sucked. So they all had these little rinky-dinky heads, because that's how you attach them to make legs and arms and stuff. So you kind of plug the head into the other guy, and that's how he would be a leg. Or if you wanted to make him an arm, you had to pull this thing out. I'm probably gonna, yeah. So you can plug that in, and make him an arm, or you attach him right on the head, he'd be a leg. You can see his legs here are like one big block. It's very kind of lame. And his arms, this guy's actually got okay length arms. They're still pretty small. But some of the other guys were literally just little stubby arms that folded out. It was very underwhelming. So yeah, these old toys, they were... there's his like squid head you can see here. If I flip this down, I'm scared to break this guy because he's old and he's a little brittle. But yeah, you get the idea. You fold this thing down. Yeah, I'm not going to do it. You fold this thing down. That's the top of his squid head. There's his squid face. There's his tentacles. So yeah, it's a shame I don't have the updated version of this guy, because this guy looks a little out of place to pose with the other dudes here. But yeah, I guess that's what I'm going to have to do for the time being. So there you go. Those are my Seacons. So before we wrap this video up, I do just want to show you a few Funko Pops that I've gotten recently. So I've got the Godzilla vs. Kong Pops here. So you can see I've got Godzilla, Kong, and spoiler alert, Mechagodzilla is in the movie. hopefully you've all seen it by now. I was actually fortunate enough to see it in the IMAX theater when it came out a couple of months ago. Our theaters were closed for quite a while before that, and then they closed again after that as we went back on a second lockdown. But the theaters were open for a brief time, and I was able to go see Godzilla vs. Kong. And it has since come out on Blu-ray, and I picked it up, and I was able to watch all the bonus features. There's a commentary track by the director, and lots of little featurettes about the various monsters and stuff. I'm a huge Godzilla fan and a huge King Kong fan, so I was super stoked about this movie. I really enjoyed it. Anyway, so you can see on the back of the packaging here all the different figures that were available. So you've got a 10-inch version of Godzilla and Kong, and then in the standard scale, Mechagodzilla, 2 different versions of Godzilla, 3 different versions of King Kong. I didn't really need every version of them. I've already got way too many Funko Pops. I don't know what to do with them all. But I did want to pick up at least one of each character. So let's pop these guys open and take a look at them. So here they are outside of the box. And we'll start with my favorite one. Godzilla. This is an awesome figure. I really love it. Like, I actually think it looks better than most of the other Godzilla figures that have come out based on the new movies. Like, I've been a Godzilla fan since I was a little kid. He's been redesigned quite a few times over the years. And I do like the modern look that he's had ever since 2014. But his head comes across a little small with that design. He's got like really big fat thighs and this little head. It's not like my favorite design for Godzilla. And the pop version of it, I think, fixes the problems that I have with it. Like, because pops have such big oversized heads anyway, it fixes that problem of him having this little pea head, and I think he looks awesome like this. This is actually one of my favorite Godzilla figures that I have. The only thing that would make it better if it had some posability, like if you could move his arms and turn his head and stuff, that would be really cool. But yeah, I think this is a great sculpted little figure with a really nice paint job. Like, I love it. Now, as for Mechagodzilla, this is not my favorite design for Mechagodzilla. I was happy to see him in the movie, and I understand why they made the choices they made. Because the original Mechagodzilla kind of looked like an old blocky transformer. Just a bunch of, big solid metal squares making him up and stuff. And that's maybe not the most realistic for a very sophisticated machine. So you can see with this guy, he's made up of all kinds of smaller parts. In the movie, it showed when he moved, all these plates shifted, and he had like little rocket boosters that allowed him to punch fast and all that stuff. So that all made sense, but it didn't necessarily make for a great design. Like, this guy kind of looks just too busy for me. He kind of looks like a Michael Bay transformer, which is not a good thing. But still, I was happy to see him in the movie. I don't hate the design. And for a Funko Pop, this guy's actually pretty cool. He could maybe just use a little bit more color to kind of break it up. Maybe if there was like a black wash over this silver. But regardless, it's a pretty neat figure. And lastly, the Kong. I love this Kong too. There was a bunch to choose from. It was kind of hard to pick which Kong to go with. Like, the other guys had black eyes. This guy had the red eyes, which I wasn't sure if I liked the red eyes, if it made him look a little too mean or something. But I kind of think it helps him to stand out on the shelf, make him a little more interesting. Plus, I really liked this like Godzilla plated axe that he had in the movie, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, this is a great little design for King Kong. And I actually previously had Funko Pops of both Godzilla and King Kong, and I'll bring them in for a comparison here. So this is the old Godzilla. So you can see this is one of the larger. He's about 6 inches. So he was kind of a deluxe sized Godzilla. Now I know on the back of the packaging for these guys, they advertised a 10-inch Godzilla. So if I got him, he would tower over even this guy. But you can see those Godzillas together. Now this one's obviously going for more of a classic Toho Godzilla. But I never really liked this one. I thought he looked kind of furry instead of scaly. He looks a little too cute. It just doesn't really scream Godzilla to me. So even though he's big and all that stuff, I think this guy's actually like way cooler. And the same with Kong. This one came out when Skull Island came out, and he is also a larger figure in the 6-inch scale. So you see he's grabbing that helicopter like he did in Skull Island. But he looked kind of freaky. Like, I don't know what's going on with his gums kind of like busting out of his mouth there. He looks a little crazy and a little demented. And I just didn't necessarily love the design. I picked it up because it was King Kong, and I thought at the time, well, this might be the only King Kong Funko Pop I get. but I actually think this new one is like much better, much cooler looking. So yeah, definitely an upgrade from the previous versions. And the last thing I have to show you today is my Kramer Funko Pop. It was a video or two ago where I got the rest of the series. So I showed you that I had Jerry and Newman and George and Elaine and the Soup Nazi. But when I bought all those guys, my store did not have Kramer. So that was kind of a bummer. So I was hoping that I would find him soon afterwards, and fortunately I did. I found him like probably the day after I did that last video. And I thought, well, now that kind of sucks. Now I have to do just Kramer all by himself. So here he is. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on him. But yeah, let's take a look at him outside of the box. So here is Kramer outside of the box. And I think he's pretty great. Like, as far as all the Seinfeld pops go, I think Kramer is probably my favorite. I could be wrong, but I think this is pretty recognizable as Kramer. Like, Kramer doesn't have a specific outfit that he wears. None of the people in Seinfeld really do. But I do think when I see that outfit, it kind of says Kramer to me. And the hair is very recognizable. So one thing I don't like about Funko Pops is when you can't tell who they are. If you take them outside of the box and you put them on your desk, I want people to walk by and recognize those characters. If it's somebody like Optimus Prime or Godzilla, that's very easy to recognize. Or if it's, somebody like Hulk Hogan, that's very easy to recognize. But when you get to somebody like Jerry Seinfeld, who's just a guy in a shirt and pants and with brown hair, they could guess almost anybody who that is. But with Kramer here, I don't think he falls in that category. I think he is pretty distinct as Kramer. Everything from the hair to the outfit to the pose, I think that all kind of works for him. So yeah, maybe if you've never seen an episode of Seinfeld, you wouldn't know who this guy is. But then I would have to say, what the hell is wrong with you that you haven't watched Seinfeld yet? But anyway, yeah, so he's pretty cool. And I'm glad that I can add him to my collection now that I have all of the main characters of Seinfeld. And yeah, we'll see if they make all of the little side characters and I end up with a massive Seinfeld collection. Okay, so that was my new Transformers figures and my new Funko Pops. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment below. I always appreciate all of that stuff. So, as I said before, I'll be back soon with another video, probably next week. So, I will see you then. Until then, man, you'd think after 126 videos I'd have a sign-off kind of like ready and prepared, but I don't. I always struggle at the end here, and I always end up repeating myself. Anyway, like, subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Ciao.